okay, this is a reaction video. This is just from State of the Union. This is the Alexi Lawless podcast. Top 5 U.S. men's national team goals all time versus Mexico. Now, I'll be honest, I've seen this one. I know what his list is, and I'm going to give my 2 cents in it. But let's take a look at this top 5 all-time U.S. men's national team goals versus Mexico.
With yet another win over Mexico, we got to thinking about...
And yeah, he's talking about the CONCACAF Nations League. We've beaten Mexico in the final 2 of the past 3 times. We beat them in the semifinal last go around. With the exception of the first one where it was 3-2, I think Landon Donovan scored a penalty in extra time to lift the United States to a 3-2 win. The United States has pretty much dominated Mexico since then, beating them 3-0 in the semifinal of the last Nations League, and then beating them 2-0 in this past Sunday.
About the history of great goals and memorable goals against Mexico. And, we love lists over here, so we put together our list of the top 5 most memorable U.S. men's national team goals versus Mexico, according to me. And I'm sure you will disagree, or maybe...
Yeah, I probably will disagree. I think, as I know what his list is, and I do disagree with a couple of them, but we'll go through them. We'll see what goes on here.
They'll agree on some of these. All right, coming in at number 5, the great Benny Feilhaber.
Now, I remember seeing this. I was actually at the Outer Banks, and we went to a Mexican restaurant just so we could see this game. And we were the only American in the
versus Mexico in the 2000.
We were the only Americans in the restaurant. The rest of them were Mexican people, and it was interesting when Benny Feilhaber scored this goal.
2007 Gold Cup just hits an absolute screamer, and this is back when.
Now I believe they said Landon Donovan was saying, "Don't hit it, don't do this," but he did it anyway and scored the winning goal. And I also remember late in the game, I think Tim Howard had to make a great save. I also believe that DeMarcus Beasley had a ball really on the one inch yard line and still managed to sky it over. Could have made it 3-1 and put the game out of reach.
Chicago actually was relevant when it comes to American soccer, but my, what a goal. Raises his hands to the heavens, gives a kiss. I mean, you can just watch this over and over again. He takes this one out of the air. Wonderful, wonderful volley. So that comes in at number 5. Moss, you got comments on this?
One note on Benny Feilhaber. Him and I have lived very similar lives. He was also born in Rio de Janeiro.
That's right.
Also moved to Scarsdale, New York at an early age, which is where I moved to. I once interviewed him and brought that up to him. He couldn't care less.
All right.
Well, why could you care less? I mean, who cares who you're born and where you ended up? That's just life.
All right, well, let's see if you got anything on this guy here. The great Peter Vermes, a Rutgers.
Now, I don't remember seeing this game, but this was apparently a big one in the 1991 Gold Cup. Fantastic goal that he scored in this game. I don't remember this one, but I think this was in the semifinal, and I think the United States went on to beat. They won in penalties against, I think, Panama. It might be Panama. I'm not sure. I forget. I think they say in this podcast. I think they say this in this video.
Guy. So I loved him even before he was starring for the national team in the and playing up top. A lot of people look at him as a defender, but they forget that in the 1990 World Cup he was a striker for the U.S. And in the 1991 Gold Cup, Peter Vermes got the ball and he just dribbled through everybody and then just hit this wonderful looping ball into the corner. And I know it's a little bit grainy, but you can still see the power and the skill and the finesse.
It was a fantastic goal. It's not one. It wouldn't be on one of my top 5 bests versus Mexico, but it is what it is.
From the Jersey boy right there. So he comes in at number 4.
That was in the 91 Gold Cup semis. The U.S. would then beat Honduras on penalty.
Honduras, sorry. I forgot which country they beat on penalties, but I know they won on penalties. After
a scoreless draw, a lot of people, including Eric Ronaldo, who we've already brought up on this pod, think this game is the original 2-0 that started to turn the tide in the right.
and I don't necessarily agree with that. The Dos Cerro really started in Columbus in 1997, in my opinion, or 99, whatever it was. Whenever we no, I think it was 99 or 2000 when we beat them. 2000 we beat them for 2001. Nah, God, look at me. I'm keep going on with the dates. It was it's 2001. 2001. That's really where it started because it just we kept beating them 2-0 every time we played them.
Rivalry.
Yeah, I think that this is when that conversation about the pendulum and obviously from a U.S. perspective starting to swing over, started to happen. Now there were still games and there were still losses along the way, but this I agree with Eric in terms of how important.
Again, I don't agree. I think the Dos Aceros started in 2001 in Columbus, and just went on, and it just never gets old. The United States beats Mexico. It's usually 2-0. I think it started in Columbus. It did not start there, despite what Winalda and Lawless say.
Important this was that this is the starting line, if you will. All right, number 3, and it's fresh in our minds, and I think it will go on to.
Now, this was a goal by Tyler Adams just about a week ago, and less than a week ago, and it was an amazing goal. It was absolutely a. Now, people have said that Ochoa was at fault for it. I don't think anybody would have stopped this goal.
Be looked at as certainly a memorable goal, epic goal from Tyler Adams after a long injury. He comes into this national team, and right at the end of the half, he hits a screamer from outside of the box. And this is not something that any of us knew he had in his locker.
Yeah, if somebody had told me that Tyler Adams was going to score a goal from 40 yards out, I would have said, "Who? Tyler Adams?" Because nobody had ever seen this from him. And the fact that he did it was just absolutely amazing.
But this is a wonderful goal and kind of a walk-off for him because at halftime, Greg Berhalter took him out. But this changed the dynamic of the game, and what a way to leave your mark in just 45 minutes of work.
Some people, including the great Matt Doyle, think this was a goalkeeping mistake by Ochoa. If you see the replay from behind, the shot wasn't as much in the corner as it might have looked. So it was poor.
It may have been poor positioning by Ochoa, but I don't think anybody would have stopped that goal. I don't think anybody would have stopped that from going in.
Positioning by Ochoa. He had a long time to react to it and really didn't.
It could be poor positioning, but if you look at it, what Ochoa does is he takes one step to the left in order to create the opportunity to have a sight line to the ball. The problem is that in that exact moment is when the shot when the shot came, and so he had to react immediately. So the information that he got by getting that line of sight was useless because his momentum had already gone to the left, and by the time he came to the right, to your point, it didn't go up or night or anything like that, but it was still moving. Regardless of which, I don't think anybody would have stopped that goal, and I don't think Ochoa is to blame for it. That shows up at number 3. Number 2, Michael Bradley, the beautiful bald man. Now this was one. Now of all the goals that I've seen, Benny Feilhaber, I think that deserves to be higher up, like at 3. I think Tyler Adams should be at number 4, but Michael Bradley's goal I think should be at number 1. To be honest with you, that's probably one of the greatest goals that was ever scored against Mexico, and is at the Azteca. Fantastic goal. And down there in Mexico City, in the Azteca, a chip of just audacious proportion from, it's got to be, 45 yards, 50 yards maybe, over Memo Ochoa. Yeah, this was an absolute amazing goal that Michael Bradley scored. It was altitude aided, but it just stunned Azteca. And Bruce Arena loved it. I loved it. Everybody that was there loved it. And I think a lot of people talk about this to this day as to how important and memorable moment it was.
The important note here, Sean Sullivan was in attendance at this match at the Azteca. It's where he learned how to throw bags of urine at players. It's a skill he's brought back. Well, that's amazing. They belong bags of urine, which is probably, I heard Costa Rica is one of the biggest places where they do that to you. Back with him to the United States.
All right, before I give you my number 1 here, a couple of different also-rans that didn't make the top 5, and then we'll give you our number 1, right? So, Landon.
Now, here's the one that I would think he would have on here. Josh Wolf's goal in the 2001 game that I talked about, which I think started the 2-0 or the 2-0. That was a fantastic goal. There was, I think, DeMarcus Beasley in the 2007 game in Columbus, which was a fantastic goal. It's not on this list. Really, I mean, there's just so many great. In fact, I remember there was a game that they played in 1995, a friendly in D.C. It was 4-0. The U.S. beat Mexico, and I think Claudio Reyna's 4th goal should have been on this list as well, but he doesn't even mention it in this game, but in this podcast. But those are some that I would think of.
And Donovan in 2007 in Glendale. I know you wanted to mention that.
Can we look at that one?
Yeah, let's look at it. Ooh, here we go. All right.
Okay, what's interesting here, this was in a friendly in 2007 in Glendale, Arizona. What disqualifies it and why it ultimately did not belong on your list is that it would not have counted today because once the ball hits the referee...
Yeah, if the ball hit the referee, and if it hits the referee, then it would basically, play would have been stopped there, but that is what it is.
Play would have stopped. But what came after it? I mean, this is some Maradona against England stuff from Landon right
well,
here.
I would disqualify it because it's a friendly, right? I mean, the circumstances of the actual games, I think, do matter in terms of being memorable.
I was going to ask you about that. It's not just the aesthetics of the goal; it's also the importance.
Yeah, I mean, we have titled it most memorable, and certainly if it's just an incredible goal like it, and this one is, yeah, that's okay. A couple of other ones, the Pulisic Man in the Mirror shirt in the Nations League. I think that was
actually a World Cup qualifier in Cincinnati, if I'm not mistaken. It wasn't the Nations League.
Wonderful. And not only for the goal, but the celebration and how iconic that was. Charlie Davies in Azteca scored.
Yeah, that was another great goal as well.
Scoring a goal. I'll never forget that because I was at the time working for ESPN, and I was I was down there with the great Bob Lee, and we were doing Sports Center hits from a roof across the way from Azteca, and Bob had never been to the Azteca, and it was like a bucket list for him. And so as soon as the game started, because we weren't actually televising it, we ran across the street, ran across the parking lot, went up into Azteca, and just as we got to this place, was basically just a place within the press box, Charlie Davies scored that goal. And just to see Bob Lee...
Of course, the United States would lose that game. It was a World Cup qualifier, but it still was a good goal.
In that environment, and he had such an appreciation and respect and reverence for this incredibly historic venue, but also to see Charlie Davies score. So that was certainly one of them. And then from the other side, and we could go on, the Gio Dos Santos goal for Mexico at the Rose.
Yeah, I never saw that game. I meant to see it, but I didn't. I didn't see it. I found out about it afterwards. The United States went up 2-0, and then would lose 4-2 in the Gold Cup. I think it was the final in 2011. I want to say.
Bowl in the Gold Cup. I think that is certainly a memorable one from a Mexican standpoint.
Yeah, Bob Bradley's last game, Gold Cup final at the Rose Bowl. Also that Ambriz, Roberto Carlos free kick, 93 Gold Cup final, probably the worst day of your...
Of course, I didn't see that game either, but yeah. There have been some great goals for Mexico against the United States as well, no question about it.
Life.
Oh my God, that thing was like Roberto Carlos-esque, went around us. Yeah, not a great wall that we set. All right, here we go. Number 1, and it should come as no surprise. Both
now, if you talk about the United States versus Mexico rivalry, and I kind of knew where he was going with this one before I when I first saw this video, it was, of all the games that the United States has played Mexico, there is one game that stands out, and one game only because it happened in the World Cup. And it was 2002, and as far as momentous games that have been played by the U.S. versus Mexico, that was probably the biggest one. Mexico had 3 days rest. The United States only had 2 days rest after losing to Poland 3-1, I believe. I think they lost to Poland 3-1, and then they played this game, and the United States would beat them 2-0. Now, he has Landon Donovan's goal as the number one. I would have thought, and so did his compatriot here, that Brian McBride's goal was probably better. And I think Brian McBride's goal was better, but okay, that it is what it is. They're still great goals, and it's still a great win for the U.S. over Mexico.
In terms of the quality of it, but also in terms of being memorable. There is still no more important game and no more important win in American soccer history when it comes to the men's team than the United States beating Mexico 2-0 at the World Cup in 2002. And Landon Donovan's goal in 2002 at the World Cup is my number one goal when it comes to U.S.-Mexico goals. Here it is. Just feast your eyes upon it. And what it meant, what we were witnessing, and for those of us that weren't there like myself, we were up in the middle of the night watching these types of things. This was special. And this team was special. And Landon Donovan and company, this was Landon's kind of coming out party to the world.
Of course, Rafa Marquez got a red card that game because of a horrendous tackle that he made on Kobe Jones. But yeah, this was this was, of all the games of the U.S. versus Mexico, this is the game that Mexico cannot live down. Is that they lost 2-0 to the United States in a knockout game in the World Cup.
He was still very, very young, and Bruce Arena had faith in him, and he repaid that by, scoring huge, huge goals. So let us know if you agree or disagree. Are you okay with that being number one?
Yeah, you could actually make a case for the other U.S. goal in that game, Brian McBride. That was a thing of beauty, too. Reina down the right wing, a low cross, the cutback, and then McBride strikes it. You could argue the overall play of that one was...
but that was the first goal.
Correct.
Right? So this literally was the 2-0 goal.
And
yeah, and I understand that, Lexi. I get that, but still, I think it was a better goal than Donovan's. But still, a very good goal by Donovan, no question about it.
Again, to get back to this point that younger generations don't appreciate how good some of these past U.S. players were, Landon was voted the best young player at that World Cup. Yeah. The U.S. had somebody that was voted the best young player at a World Cup. Landon was also the Golden Ball winner at an under-17 World Cup. So he did things that nobody in this generation has done yet that people don't give him enough credit for.
Not too shabby of a player. Very good player.
Although he only made it over to Europe when he went to Bayer Leverkusen. Then again, we could talk about Landon Donovan all day long. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think he ever really reached his level where he could have been if he'd gone over to Europe and stayed over there. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, you got to play where you're happy, and he was happier in MLS, and look, he did well with the U.S. national team up till 2014 when Jurgen Klinsmann said, "Nope, not going to take you," and that's a story for another day.
But I'm glad that you pointed that out, because we kick ourselves for what we aren't and what we haven't done, and sometimes it's important to remind people to, we can pat ourselves on the back for an individual like Landon Donovan or how far we have come. Doesn't mean we rest on our laurels by any stretch of the imagination, and hopefully that there are players coming, whether we've seen them already or we're going to see them, that are much better than Landon and everybody else there. I think Landon would be the first person to tell you that that's the goal. But we still have a wonderful history. Let us know if you agree or disagree with this top five out there.
Like I say, I kind of disagree with it a little bit. I mean, Benny Failharbour, I think, would be number 3. Adams number 4. Bradley number 1. Donovan, well, maybe I'd make him put number 5. And like I said, I think Josh Wolf's goal in the 2001 game at Columbus, or even DeMarcus Beasley's goal at the 2005. That's DeMarcus Beasley, 2005. That's probably what I would, which I was trying to think about. That was another great goal. But it is what it is. But look, this is State of the Union podcast. Please click like, share, and subscribe to them, as well as like, share, and subscribe for me. Top 5 U.S. men's national teams all-time goals versus Mexico. Have a good rest of your day. Thanks for watching.